Namaste, everyone, and really happy to see all of you join us for this, I guess it's session number 16 or 17 in our ongoing series, Kala Evam Adhyatm. And today we go in another different direction. We had one session on Indian sculpture, and today we go a little deeper into that, focusing on the interplay between Indian iconography and spirituality, Indian iconography and Bharatiya Adhyatm, as Sneha ji has so beautifully described in her description. So to do that, and it's all going to be, as always, in the light of Sri Aurobindo's writings on Indian art. And just to briefly introduce our speaker for this evening, we have Sneha ji with us, joining us from Mumbai. She's currently working as assistant professor of archaeology at the Center for Extramural Studies, University of Mumbai. And she specializes in ancient and medieval Vaishnavism, ancient Indian art, architecture, ancient Indian religious, political, and economic histories. This interesting background that she brings, on one side, her deep interest in Indian art, iconography, archaeology of religion, and archaeology and texts, ancient inscriptions, and also the political and economic history of ancient and medieval India. I find that very amazing and interesting. She has also actually written a book on ancient Indian economy, which was published earlier this year. And she has given a lot of talks on Indian iconography, on archaeology of religion. And also this another specialization that she brings is focusing on Mathura sculpture, Mathura and Vrij, the Krishna Bhakti that is there of the Mathura region. So she also conducts heritage walks in Vrindavan Vrij region, which I'm definitely going to be kind of knocking on her door when I get a chance to do that. And she also is associated with Panchajanya Cultural Heritage Initiatives, which is another educational cultural heritage education forum. So she brings a very interesting background. So we look forward to your presentation today on fundamentals of Indian iconography and how it interplays with the spiritual approach to sculpture. And just to kind of get started, it's like, as Satya was playing the prayer, the one sentence of Sri Aurobindo that kept playing in my mind, where he says, gods of Indian sculpture are cosmic beings. They are not a murtikar's fanciful imagination. So with that, I think we can, it's my pleasure to invite you, Sneha ji, to take us on this journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Biluji. It's a great privilege to be speaking on such a prestigious platform, and I'm really grateful to you and your whole team for giving me this opportunity to share whatever little I know about iconography and Adhyatma. I've used some of the works of Sri Aurobindo, and he's an ocean. He's a seamless ocean. So I'm a very ordinary person and I have no right to comment on his writings. In fact, the only thing that I can say about his writings is that they simply inspire. Simply inspire. So I'll be, of course, talking about some of his writings also. So I'll start my presentation now. Is the full screen, can the full screen be seen? Okay. So today what I'm going to do is we are going to basically see a very kind of a very basic interconnection, interrelationship of iconography, Indian iconography and Adhyatma, which roughly translates to something that is spiritual, something that is intuitive. So since we have we don't have we have a brief time period to discuss this, so I'll be just getting into the basics, but sometime later we can always get into the more nuances of the same theme. I'll start on a slightly light note, but that actually has a very, a very significant import. Now, this was a cartoon that I came across sometime in 2019 on Facebook, and this particular cartoon has a very kind of a jarring mistake. And the error is that they've shown Ganesha with a typical Sri Vaishnava Urdhva Pundra mark. No problem. Finally, all God is one, the supreme reality is one. That's, we of course accept that. Hinduism also accepts it. But at the same time, every deity has a separate function. Every deity has a separate iconography, which is like his or her identity. So showing Ganesha with a Vaishnava Urdhva Pundra mark is not as per the canons of Indian iconography. And it is for this reason that at least if we are making a picture or depicting some kind of a deity, a Hindu deity or a Jain Tirthankar or the Buddha or some Buddhist deity, we must be aware about their iconographical features. So it is for this reason that I have inserted this cartoon here. And as Beluji rightly said, Sri Aurobindo and the ethos of Hinduism, Sanatana Dharma, perceives the deities as cosmic beings. So their forms, when we talk about the iconographical texts, they are based on some sort of God realization. That is what we must keep in mind. Of course, there are cultural factors, there are historical factors. I'm not undermining those. I'm not even negating those. But Sri Aurobindo also, whenever he's writing on Indian art, he always talks about God realization. So that is something we must keep in mind. And as we go ahead, we will go a little deeper into it. So there is this quotation from the Ramopanishad, and since it's from the Ramopanishad, I have shown here a figure of Rama from Rani Ki Vav, dating to the 11th century CE. And it says that actually the supreme truth is one, it is Chinmaya, it is Nishkala, and it is Asharirina. It doesn't have a body. It doesn't have any organs. But for the benefit of the Upasakas, the Brahman, the entity of Brahman, has been given a form. Rupa Kalpana. It has been assigned, some sort of a form has been conceptualized. Now, even when we talk about the writings of Adi Shankaracharya, we know that Adi Shankaracharya was the one who spoke about Kevaladvaita, which is to some extent in tune with what the Upanishads say. I'm saying to some extent because other Vedanta schools of Vedanta have also interpreted the Upanishads in other ways. So I'm not saying that what Shankaracharya is saying is the only way of interpreting the Upanishads, or for that matter, the whole Prasthanatraya. But at one place in the Chandogya Upanishada Bhashya, Shankara says that even meditating on the Nama of Brahman itself is meditating on Brahman. And he gives the example of a Vishnu image, that people worship an image of Vishnu. Just as people worship the image of Vishnu, then think it to be Vishnu himself. This is the translation given by Pandit Ganganath Jha. So, Namo Pasva Brahmeti Brahma Buddhya Yatha Pratimam Vishnu Buddhya Upaste Tadvat. So, actually, the worshipper knows that this is not Vishnu. In fact, the name Vishnu itself means something that is all-encompassing. So, something that is all-encompassing cannot be restricted to a single image. But at the same time, the worshipper sees the essence of Vishnu in that image. Actually, what is it? It may be a piece of metal, wood, or stone, or terracotta. But the worshipper considers that image to be that of Vishnu and he is worshipping it. He's performing Abhisheka, he's offering flowers, he's offering lamps. So this is where the significance of iconography comes, that when we have images, they are perceived, I won't say they are perceived as the very form of Brahman. That is the reason why we have Shankaracharya traveling all over the country and reforming the religious practices in many temples. So we are told that even in the Guruvayur temple, they perform the rituals the way Adi Shankaracharya had instructed way back in the early 9th century CE. So just a little about the term religion. The word religion actually has various connotations. I'm not getting into that. The Abrahamic religions, that is Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they are monotheistic and they are against any kind of idolatry. But in Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism, idolatry and the highest philosophical truths go hand in hand, because images are considered to be a swarupa of that Brahman. And the worshipper, and generally, if an enlightened worshipper knows that this is not Brahman, but at the same time, to reach Brahman, this is one marga. Okay. And in Hinduism, we have this theory of one, many, many, one. So we have one supreme reality, but we perceive it in various forms, and we have various forms, but we say ultimately that all are actually the one supreme reality. So whether it is Shiva, whether it is Vishnu, generally it is said that you should not distinguish between Shiva and Vishnu. You must, it's not the right thing to say that, Shiva is superior to Vishnu or the other way. I know there are many people who do that today, but that is not the right thing. That increases unnecessary rivalry between the various sects. But anyway, we will see how it is reflected in iconography also. And when we talk about image worship, or which is the fundamental principle behind iconography, we realize that image worship is the worship of the embodied form of the divine. And a murti is perceived not only as the form or swarupa of the divine, but it is considered to be the nivasa, the abode, the residence of the divine. And Hinduism, the nature of Hinduism, at least since the last 2,200 years, is temple Hinduism. That is what George Michel also says. And when we talk about temple Hinduism, it invariably means image worship. Now, essentially, if you see, any religion has three components: philosophy, rituals, and mythology. And if we see, iconography is actually an embodiment of all the three. So there is some sort of a philosophy underlying a certain icon. Then obviously there are rituals. These rituals confirm the social norms, and every icon has a certain myth or a narrative. And it is through these narratives that we pass the thought processes and the material culture to the next generation. And even in the case of rituals, they are a part of the material culture of any given civilization. And iconography, as a discipline, as a practice, is very much a part of the material culture of the civilization. But our aim finally should be to transcend this material aspect and reach that supreme being. So from gross, we have to travel to the subtle form of subtle Brahman. So what basically is an icon? Can any image or any symbol be called an icon? Not really. The term icon is derived from the Greek term icon, which means object of worship. And an icon necessarily means a human form, or at least a semi-human form. So in the strict sense of the word icon, a Shiva Linga cannot be considered to be an icon. It is a symbol. See, the term linga itself doesn't just mean the phallus. The term linga means a symbol also. Shankaracharya says in the Pandurangashtakam, Parabrahma lingam bhaje Pandurangam. Panduranga or Vithala is called the linga, the symbol, the lanchana of Parabrahma. He is Parabrahma. So, according to J.N. Banerjee, I mean, he's given the definition as you can see on the screen, and an icon is necessarily related to rituals and to worship. The rituals which are a part of the whole procedure of worship, and an icon may be in the form of a sculpture, in the form of a mosaic, in the form of a painting. It can be in various mediums, and it is very much something that is venerated, not just venerated, but something that is worshipped. And there are various names for the term icon in Hindu, not just in Hindu traditions, but even in Buddhist and Jaina traditions. And we have names like Archa, Bera, Vigraha. I'll discuss these. And in fact, the icon becomes the medium between the Bhakta and the Bhagwan, the Bhakta and the Almighty. We'll see how. Now, what is the difference between an image and an icon? So basically, the term for image is pratima. That word is used in the Pratima Natakam of Bhasa. It is used in the context of the Pratima Ghar, or the image house of the Satavahanas. But a Pratima may not necessarily be worshipped. Okay. Now here we can see an image of Ganga. It's from a temple near the Nandi Hills near Bangalore. So the Ganga here is represented on the Gopuram. So here she is not to be worshipped. Definitely she is sacred. She has certain functions. But here she is not, this image is not to be worshipped. So we can't really say that this is an icon. Then very intimately associated with the concept of image worship is the concept of darshana. Now, darshana doesn't just mean seeing. It is also experiencing. See, even our philosophy, the term for philosophy in the Indic traditions is not Tattvajnana. Tattvajnana is a relatively modern name. We use the term darshana because these are revealed philosophies. That is the belief that our seers, our philosophers, the Vedika Rishis, the Upanishadic Rishis, they experienced those philosophies. They were a product of their realization, their self-realization. Or I won't even bring the term self-realization, but realization of some kind of a supreme truth. I'm not using the term God because there are even among the Astika Darshanas, there are schools of philosophy, say like Sankhya or Mimamsa, Purva Mimamsa, that is, who do not recognize the concept of Ishvara or God. So I'm not using the term God realization, but some kind of supreme truth has been recognized. And when it comes to Darshana, Professor Diana Eck, who has written a full book on the concept of Darshana, says that India is a visual and visionary culture, one in which the eyes have a prominent role in the apprehension of the sacred. That is why even today, we have these long queues in many of the temples, whether you take the Kamakhya temple in Guwahati, or whether you take the Venkatesh, the Tirupati Balaji temple, or any temple. Even on festival days, if a simple temple will also have a long queue. Why is it? Because people want to have the darshana of that image. And it may be for various purposes, it could be for the fulfillment of some wish, or whatever it could be. And just the act of seeing the deity is a fulfilling experience for the devotee. In Marathi, we have this Ganpati Arti, which has been written by Sant Ramdas, where he says that Darshana Matre Mana Kamana Purti. by the mere darshana of the Lord, all my wishes have been fulfilled. But this is not where the whole thing ends. The devotee also wishes, or rather wants, that the Lord should see him or her. The krupa drushti of the Lord should fall on the devotee. So it is a two-way process. So when we use the term murti, it means an embodiment, and it is obviously related to darshana. To see something by the physical eyes, you need some symbol, you need some tangible object before you. And Professor G.B. Deglurkar, who is a very senior Indologist and he is an expert in the domain of iconography, he gives a very beautiful definition of a murti, where he says that a murti is the artistic manifestation of the intensity of religiosity and the quest for the ultimate adhyatmika entity. So it is not just the physical, it is so the murti is perceived as the adhyatmika entity, though it is a tangible form. So murti is anything that has a definite shape, a body, a figure. It could be an incarnation and a manifestation. So here in the picture, you can see an image of Parvati from central India, dated to the 11th or the 12th century CE. So here she is in a way embodying that Shakti, or in a way this whole concept of Jagan Mata. But here we see her with 4 hands, with wearing beautiful ornaments, with a beautiful hairstyle, holding various kinds of ayudas like a trishula. So it is the embodiment form. Here she is, this murti is the embodied form of the Jagan Mata. And rather than likeness, we will not say that this is like Parvati. This is Parvati. This is an image of Parvati. This is Parvati. So this is where the difference between murti and pratima, an icon and an image, comes to the fore. Then even Upanishads like the Shvetashvatara or Maitreya or Aitareya, they use the term murti in the sense of an embodiment. Like they say that the flame is the murti of the fire. And as per the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, murti is a manifestation, it is a form. And actually, if we see, people say that why are you limiting the Almighty? We are not limiting that supreme reality. It is limitless. But our perception, we as human beings, our perception is limited. So that is why we are limiting, because we cannot grasp the supreme reality in its fullness, because it is infinite. It is infinite. So because our perception has limitations, that is why we have this concept of a tangible representation, tangible embodiment of the limitless. Then we have something like archa. A murti is also called an archa. What does an archa mean? Something that is venerated, something that is adored, an idol. Then we also have the term vigraha. The term vigraha means something to grasp. Graha means to grasp, something to catch hold of. So it stands for a body. And according to Diana Eck, vigraha is that form which enables the mind to grasp the nature of God. So what we see in the icons is how we are perceiving God, how the human mind is perceiving God, but it is not imagination. It is not imagination, it is God realization. And any image has both human and superhuman qualities. Like it will have a face like a human being, hands like a human being. But when an image has 4 hands, then the superhuman element is introduced. When an image has more than 1 head, then the superhuman element is introduced. So it is actually, a murti is a combination of both human and superhuman combination. Now here we can see a vigraha of Ganesha. So Ganesha here has 2 feet like any of us, but he has 4 hands. Now actually, and he has a head of an elephant and the body of a human being. So that is not really, that is not possible in reality. But this is where the superhuman aspect comes, and even Sri Aurobindo talks about that. And in a way, the icons are visible scriptures. because they tell us about various religious traditions, they tell us about philosophy, and they tell us about the expansion of a particular sect. Like, in what forms is a certain deity perceived in a given sect, or the same deity may be perceived in various contexts, in various subsects of that particular sect. So finally, what is iconography? Iconography is the special branch of knowledge which deals with the study of icons, and it includes the actual description of icons. So how many hands does an icon have? How many heads does it have? What are the kind of clothes that icon is shown wearing? What are the ornaments? What are the ayudhas that a particular icon is holding? Where is its vahana? What is its vahana? Is it shown, killing a certain rakshas or danava? Is that icon shown along with his or her consort? So all these things are a part of iconography. Then we come to the term iconology. So basically, iconology is the scientific study of icons, which includes the study of the socio-religious factors, the actual making of images, rituals, mythology, cultural contexts, and literary traditions associated with iconology. Now, today what happens is that many people only focus on the graphy part. The logy is forgotten, but it's important to also include the aspects of iconology. Then we have this concept of iconometry or talamana, which is the science of proportionate measurements of different parts of the body of the icon or the figure to be represented. Actually, I do want to speak on that, but we may be running short of time, so I may just skip that section. I'll just talk about it in brief. Basically, every image has to be made with respect to certain measurements. So if you're showing Shiva and Parvati, Parvati can never be shown taller than Shiva. And generally we are told, it may not always happen, but Brahma also should never be shown larger than Shiva or Vishnu. The highest dimensions are meant only for the images of Shiva and Vishnu. So even when they are showing Ram, Lakshman and Sita, Lakshmana will never be taller than Rama. Rama will be taller because he is the focus of that particular, particular configuration, that configuration of those images, that particular iconographical depiction. So, and every image has every category of images has a certain a proportion, has a certain set of proportions which have been allotted to it, and generally they have to be followed. Then what are the sources for the study of iconography? So basically we have both archaeological and literary sources. So among the archaeological sources, we have the icons themselves. They are the primary source for the study of iconography. They indicate various cultural aspects and the cultural concepts. They also they tell us how that particular icon is being perceived by the devotee or the creator. They tell us about the spirit of devotion, because an icon definitely is related to bhakti or the spirit of devotion. Here we can see this icon of Nataraja, and this is a typical Chola Nataraja. I will not speak about Nataraja because Ananda Kumaraswamy has dealt with this whole image in great detail in his well-known essay known as The Dance of Shiva, and I request all of you to go through that essay. And even in the recent times, Professor Sharada Srinivasan has worked extensively on the icons of Nataraja, but the icons of Nataraja combine in themselves science, spirituality, and art. Now, if you just observe this image, you will find a movement. I do. Just observe the image and you will find a certain dynamism, you'll find a certain movement. And you will hardly find a Nataraja like this in northern India, because this particular image is originating from the dance traditions of southern India, Tamil Nadu to be precise. So such icons we see only in southern India and Tamil Nadu specifically. We have Nataraja images elsewhere also. We have dancing Shiva images at Badami. We have them at Ellora. But they are not Nataraja. They are Natesha images. The dance shown is different. Even we have a beautiful image of Natesha Shiva at Elephanta. Unfortunately, it is broken. But we can still make out the dynamism. So here the cultural aspect also comes. So basically, this is the whole, it's a cosmic event that is actually taking place. The whole cosmic event of Shiva's dance is represented in this icon. Even Sri Aurobindo talks about the Nataraja icon. Then this is a Yaksha image from Mathura. So what is it telling us? That this is certainly some kind of a divinity, either a Yaksha or at least some prince. He has some prominence. He's wearing beautiful kundalas. He is wearing very, heavy jewelry. His drapery can be seen. He has a very well executed headgear. And the sheer scale of this image tells us that yes, this is some kind of a divinity which was worshipped. Then this is an image of Buddha also from Mathura. This is one of the earliest images of the Buddha. And this is found from the place which today is known as Sri Krishna Janmasthana. So here we can immediately make out, even if we don't know that this is the Buddha, we can at least make out one thing, that this is, and he is an ascetic. He is some kind of a tapasvi, some kind of a yogi, because he's sitting in the Padmasana. And why? And he is a divinity also, because his right hand is in the Abhaya Mudra. So he is an ascetic and he is a divinity. And he is a Chakravarti because Buddha is called a Dharma Chakravarti. So when the images of the Buddha were made, especially in the Indic school, starting with the Madhura school of art, they combine in themselves the ideals of a yogi and Chakravarti. And Chakravarti in the sense of Dharma Chakravarti. Buddha has been called a Dharma Chakravarti. And what are the cultural aspects? We can see the two bodhisattvas behind him. We can understand what kind of jewelry they are wearing. Their headgear are typical to Mathura. And then even if you see the drapery of the Buddha's Sanghati, it is different from the way we see in Gandhara. It is different from the way we see in the Amaravati school. This sort of an, Ushanisha is there in all Buddha images. But in the Gupta period images, the curls can be seen. Whereas in the Kushana period images, we do not have the curls. Then other aspects of material culture, like the chauris, can be seen. So since he's a Chakravarti, these two bodhisattvas are actually serving him. Then even on coins, we have images of various deities. Like here, if I tell you who these two are, you'll be surprised. This is Vasudeva Krishna and this is Sankarshana Balarama. And on whose coins are they represented? They have been represented on the coins of an Indo-Greek ruler called Agathocles, and these were found at a place called Ai-Khanum in Afghanistan, and these date to the 2nd century BCE. And Vasudeva Krishna is described as Shankha Chakradharaha. So here, exactly the same depiction you can see. He's shown with a chakra and he's shown with a shankha. Then Balarama, Sankarshana Balarama is called Haladhara, Halayudha, and here you can see him with the Hala. So these are the earliest representations of Vasudeva Krishna and Sankarshana. So nowhere in the early art, right till the early medieval period, you don't find Krishna playing the flute. He's always shown as a typical warrior god. Then this is an image of a coin belonging to the Yaudheya Republic or Yaudheya Gana Sangha, where we see Skanda Kartikeya being shown. And you can see him with his spear, which is known as Shakti, and here he's carrying a kukuta. Even in later iconographic depictions, Kartikeya is shown in the same way. And this is an image of a coin of the Kushana ruler Vima Kadphises, where this is supposed to be an image of Shiva. Shiva with Nandi. But recently I read an article by a well-known German Indologist called Harry Falk, and he said that this is not Shiva, this is actually in Agni, and the bull behind that figure is actually not a bull but a cow. But see, the thing is that generally cows are not shown as vahanas generally, and the hump is quite prominent, indicating that this is a male cow or a bull. And he's shown with a trident, and sometimes a deer is shown. So the iconography matches more with the iconography of Shiva. But I'm not negating or refuting what Professor Falk has said. Also can be considered. Now this is a coin of Chandragupta II Vikramaditya.
Sneha, just to interrupt, can we go back one slide? I don't want to miss. So yes, so if this is Shiva and Nandi, what's the other one? The one, it's the other side of the coin?
This one? This is Vima this is the king himself, Vima Kadaphysis.
Okay.
So generally on ancient coins, on one side, we would have the king, who has issued the coin, and on the other side, we would have a deity, generally the tutelary deity or divinity of that king. So actually, Vima Kadaphysis declares himself to be a Maheshwara. Now, Maheshwara was initially interpreted as a devotee of Maheshwara. But Harry Falk says that Maheshwara here actually means that he is just proclaiming that he is the Lord of the earth, or he is the Lord of all beings. Who? Vima Kadaphysis. So here, and on the coins of the Kushana rulers, whether it is Kanishka was Vima Kadaphysis' son, whether it is Vima Kadaphysis or whether it is Vima Kadaphysis' father, Vima Takshama, or Vima Takshama's father, Kujula Kadaphysis, or Kanishka's successor, Huvishka, a number of deities were shown. So we have the Buddha being shown, we have Shiva being shown, then we have Greek gods, we have Iranian gods, and on the coins of later Kushana rulers, we even have the depiction of Vasudeva Krishna. And coincidentally, the name of the king who has issued coins with the image of Vasudeva was also Vasudeva. So this is an image of Chandragupta II Vikramaditya, the well-known Gupta emperor. And here we can see this is the king, and he is killing a lion, and he's hunting a lion. And here this is interpreted by scholars as Simha Vahini Durga. Then image worship is also reflected in various inscriptions. So even Ashoka, in one of his inscriptions at Girnar, talks about divine forms, where he says that Divyani Rupani, which are interpreted as effigies of gods. Then the base Nagar pillar inscription of the Greek ambassador Heliodorus speaks about the erection of a Garuda Dhwaja. So this is the Garuda Dhwaja erected by Heliodorus, and he proclaims himself to be a Bhagavata and a great devotee of Devadeva Vasudeva. And the fact that there is a Garuda Dhwaja here indicates that there must have been a Vaishnava shrine, and here at Base Nagar, near Vidisha, remains of apsidal Vaishnava shrines have been also discovered. Then we spoke about the Garuda Dhwaja. Now here on the coins of the Gupta rulers, and this is also a coin of Chandragupta II Vikramaditya, we find this Garuda Dhwaja, but here this is as the royal emblem of the Guptas. But why did the Guptas adopt the Garuda Dhwaja as the royal emblem? Because they were Vaishnavas. Chandragupta II declares himself to be a Parama Bhagavata. So it was an emblem of Vishnu. It was a part of Vishnu's worship, Vasudeva's worship, and by the Gupta period, by the late 4th, early 5th century CE, it also becomes a part of religious insignia. So a religious symbol is also getting the form of a political kind of a symbol. Then we also have references to the images of the Pancha Vrishni Veeras in an inscription from Mathura. Who are the Pancha Vrishni Veeras? Vrishni was the family to which Krishna belonged, Vasudeva Krishna belonged. So the Pancha Vrishni Veeras are Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Samba, and Aniruddha. So they are all the signs of the Vrishni Kula. So we have Vasudeva, then we have Balarama, Sankarshana, then Pradyumna and Sambar, the sons of Vasudeva, and Aniruddha is the grandson of Vasudeva. So images of these 5 divinities were established in a temple, in a stone temple, by a lady called Tosha in the 1st century CE at Mathura. And this is one of the images which was found near the temple site. So this could be any Vrishni Veer. I mean, it could be Vasudeva Krishna, it could be Pradyumna, it could be Samba. We are in no position to state whose image this is, but here those Vrishni Veeras are shown in the form of, the Vrishni signs are shown in the form of Veeras, brave people or valiant heroes. So we get a reference to image worship, and the word used is Pratima. Then we have various literary sources also belonging to, iconometric and non-iconometric sources. So even as far as the iconometric sources are concerned, there are northern traditions and southern traditions. I'm skipping this a bit because, we don't have that kind of time. Then we have the Agamas. I'll talk about them a little later in the other works. Then there are various theories about the origins of image worship. So in the regular theories, like the Aryans, the so-called Aryans borrowed the practice of image worship from the so-called Dravidians, and the Hindus, or rather the Brahmins, adopted it from the Buddhists. And the third theory is that image worship is a natural and self-emergent form of worship. So of course, the first 2 theories are no longer considered valid. And according to Mahamahopadhyay P.V. Kane, somewhere, if you see, the Upanishadic philosophy lays an emphasis on non-violence. So even like the Upanishads talk about, visualizing a yajna or the breath itself as yajna rather than the performance of an actual yajna. So we gradually have the decline of the institution of yajnas, though kings, right, till the Gupta period continued to perform Ashwamedha yajnas on a very regular scale. But yajna is replaced by pujana, and pujana invariably means image worship. And before image worship as such, we have symbols being worshipped. And even in later Indian schools of art, we have plenty of representations where actual worship of images or symbols is also shown. Then bhakti and image worship are closely related, because bhakti or devotion is related to a personal god or Ishta Devata, and you somehow establish a personal contact with that Ishta Devata, and that cannot be done with the Nirakara Nirguna Brahman. And bhakti, if we see, is an all-inclusive path. It's meant for everyone. Whereas Jnana Marga may not be meant for everyone, or Yoga Marga may not be meant for everyone. So, bhakti being the all-inclusive path, there is this concept of Ishta Devata, and Ishta Devata implies some kind of a tangible form and image to which the bhakta can relate to. That is why even in many compositions of the saints, whether it is the Varkari saints of Maharashtra or whether it is, the erotically rich compositions of Andar, the form of the Lord is always emphasized on. So, Jnaneshwar talks about Vithala, Tukaram talks about Vithala, Andar talks about Ranganatha, or Shankaracharya is talking about Kala Bhairava. So, the form of the Lord is very important. And we have growth of cults where the element of bhakti was the main guiding principle. So this whole Bhagavata Sampradaya, starting from the worship of Vasudeva Krishna, maybe it may even date back to the pre-Buddhist times, is based on the Ekantika Bhakti to Bhagavan Vasudeva Krishna, where definitely there was an image of the Lord which was worshipped. So it is called Ekantika or Ekatmika Bhakti, that even the Bhagavata Purana calls Uddhava, an ekantika bhakta of Krishna. Anyway, so ekatmika bhakti in a way was one of the primary functions of murtis. Then murtis have to be conducive to dhyana yoga. That is the reason why if we take any text, whether it is the Vishnu Sahasranama, whether it is the Devi Mahatmya, whether it is the Rama Raksha Stotram, or even whether it is the compositions of saints like medieval saints like Goswami Tulsidasa or Advaitins like Madhusudana Saraswati, they are all talking about the form of the Godhead. And before any stotra, generally the dhyana shloka is given. Why is it? And it is all about the physical attributes of that deity. Why is it so? So that you can, by initially concentrating on that physical form, you can gradually tune yourself to the higher levels of meditation and finally God realization. So we have images being made right from the Neolithic times. We have various images being made in the Sindhu Saraswati civilizations, even in the cultures succeeding the Sindhu Saraswati civilizations. We do have images. So there are some human images, but the bulk of images are animal images. And when we come to the Vaidika period, the Vaidika deities have been perceived in some way or the other, some form or the other, by every Rishi. Now, how a particular Rishi, how a particular seer saw that deity is different. And basically, if we see nature, culture, what is culture? Culture is nothing but the extra somatic means of adaptation to nature. So basically, man is coming in contact with nature, and when he's coming in contact with nature, he is understanding the nature of nature, that nature is benevolent, at the same time it is malevolent, and on these perceptions, on his experiences, the way, in the Vedic people, they have formed certain perceptions, certain images of the natural phenomena, where the natural phenomena are venerated. So the earth is or Prithvi is the one who sustains the whole creation. She's Vasundhara because she holds all the resources. She's bearing this whole creation. Then fire, Agni is important because Agni is the source of energy. We require fire for cooking. Then by the Vedic times, metal smelting, iron smelting had become very common. So we need fire for iron smelting, and it is only when we make iron objects that weapons can be made, then horseshoes can be made, various objects can be made. We need fire for generating heat and light. So that is why we have the significance of Agni in the Vedic religion, in Vaidika Dharma, which is still very much there in our culture. I'm not getting into this. Now, Vedas don't really have image worship, but there is a big but here. Vedic Suktas form the basis for Puranic narratives, and it is on these Puranic Itihasa Purana narratives that the iconographical depictions are based. So we have Vishnu in the Veda, Rigveda, taking 3 strides. It's called Urukrama, and that same imagery is reflected in the 3 Vikramas. You can see the 3 Vikrama image of Vishnu, one of the avatars of Vishnu. So here also Vishnu is taking the 3 steps. Vishnu as Vaman, and then he takes this all-encompassing form. Then we have the concept of Lakshmi, Gaja Lakshmi or Shri in the Sri Sukta. And she is surrounded by elephants. She's sitting on a lotus. Same thing you see in the icons. This is Gaja Lakshmi from Bharut, from the railing of a Buddhist stupa, not from any Vaidika shrine. Here at the same time, this is Gaja Lakshmi from a Pallava period rock cut cave from Mahabalipuram. So basically, these 2 images are, they are removed from each other through a period of centuries, but at the same time, the elephants are very much there. Lakshmi is associated with lotuses, and she is being bathed by elephants through kumbhas. Here you can see the kumbhas, and even here you can see the kumbhas. So that spirit of the Indic ethos can be seen. Then here is Varuna. Varuna, this is from the Raja Rani temple from Bhuvaneshwar, dating say to the 10th or the 11th centuries of the Common Era. And here you can see him holding the Pasha. Now in the Rig Veda, we are told that Varuna had a Pasha, and those who will go against his Rita, the cosmic order, he will bind those in his Pasha and punish them. So that Vedic concept of Rita and Pasha is now seen embodied in the image of Varuna as a Dikpala or guardian of a certain direction, the western direction. Then even Shiva, Rudra Shiva is described as Kapardin. That is one of his names in the Shatarudriya of the Yajurveda. So that Kapardin, which means the one with a matted hair, that same thing we find as Jatamukuta in the images of Shiva. Isn't it? So anyway, I'm just skipping these few things. So even later texts, like the Brahmanas, Aranyakas and Grihya Sutras, they speak about various images in various contexts. Then I spoke about, that gradually images of deities began to acquire superhuman qualities. Like we have images with more heads, with multiple hands. Sri Aurobindo also talks about that. Ananda Kumaraswamy has spoken about that. So here we have a terracotta image of Mahisha Mardini, where she's shown with 4 hands. And this is one of the early Kushana images from Mathura. And by the time we come to the Shunga Kushana period, that is around the Kushana or the Kushana Satavahana period, that is around the first 2 or 3 centuries of the Common Era, we find that icons are being made in various mediums: stone, terracotta, wood, and metal. Metal images were few, but stone, terracotta, and wood were commonly used. Then even by the time we come to the Kushana Satavahana period, the idea of bhakti is well established, and Guna Sankirtana is one of the aspects of bhakti, and even the ultimate aim of bhakti is attainment of moksha. And I've already spoken about an inclusive bhakti as an inclusive path. And meditation on Nirguna Brahma is difficult. So image worship, concentration on a form, on a symbol, is the preliminary stage of sadhana. Even the Narada Bhakti Sutras in a way speak about this, that worshipping an image is one of the ways of bhakti. I mean, they attribute this saying to Vyasa, Parasharya, but it is recognized as a valid form of bhakti. And even in the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali mentions that how can you concentrate or by fixing the mind upon any divine form or symbol that appeals to one as good. So it could be an image, it could be some symbol, but even a very profound kind of a philosophy like yoga, the Yoga Darshana, is also speaking about focusing your attention at the primary stage on a tangible object. Then we find the Buddha being represented in various uniconic forms, and we even find in art, say from Sanchi or Mathura, where we find people actually, in a way venerating shrines also. Like here you can see that there is no image, but these are definitely shrines, and we can see people in the Namaskara Mudra. And by the time we come to the Kushana Satavahana period, we have the construction or excavation of Buddhist Chaitya Garas. We have Jaina shrines coming up, and we also have Hindu temples in their very basic forms also being constructed. And one of the major reasons for this gradual emergence of places of worship was that they were supported also by the ruling classes. Then here, as you can see on the coin of Kanishka, we find a depiction of Buddha. This is one of the earliest depictions of Buddha in the human form, because prior to the 1st century CE, the Buddha was never depicted in human form. There are reasons for that, but I'm not getting into those. Maybe we can take that up in the question and answer session. Then even in various, pieces of writing, pieces of literature, we have references to images. So we have Panini in his Ashtadhyayi mentioning the representation of various popular deities. Patanjali is talking about icons of Shiva, Skanda, and Vishaka. Patanjali also talks about the temples of Keshava, Rama here is Balarama, and Dhanapati, that is Kubera. Kautilya is speaking about where images of various deities like Vaijayanta, that is Indra, then Vaishravana, that is Kubera. Megasthenes refers to an image of Heracles, which is usually interpreted as an image of Vasudeva Krishna. Then this mother goddesses have been represented since at least the 4th century BC. So this is a Mauryan period terracotta image of, supposed to be that of a mother goddess from the Mauryan period from Mathura. Then here we can see people worshipping a stupa. So here some people interpret this image, this is from Sanchi, as the nirvana of Buddha, but it is not nirvana of the Buddha, because actually we see people are celebrating here. There's some kind of a celebration with music and all. So this might be some festival related to the stupa, but the stupa stands for the Buddha. Then this is an image of a yakshi. So yakshis were depicted in human form, though they are called demigods or demigoddesses. And in fact, they were worshipped as symbols of fecundity and symbols of prosperity. And the images of gods were actually based on the images of yakshas. Then by the time we come to the Gupta period, we have the gradual popularizing of Puranic literature. Actually, Puranas, the term Purana is mentioned first in the Atharva Veda. But Puranas as a genre of literature start gaining popularity by the Gupta period, and various forms of divinities, like the incarnations of Vishnu, for example, their forms are being represented, because by this time we have the concept of Avataravada gaining importance. So we have, here we can see an icon of Nruvaraha or Varaha. I'm skipping this. Then there are various kinds of images. So we have Chala and Achala. Chala images are movable images. Achala images are images which cannot be moved. So generally the images in the Garbhagruha are Achala images. Then we have Chala, which are images which are movable and immovable. And I think the best example is that of the Vigrahas of Jagannatha, Balabhadra and Subhadra at Puri. So the same Vigrahas are taken out in the Ratha Yatra. Then we have Apurana and Purana images. So basically here, this is an image of Sadashiva, where only Sadashiva image has 5 faces. But here, only 3 faces are shown, and the other 2 faces are implied. This is actually the Sakala Nishkala form of Shiva or Sadashiva or Mahasadashiva, which is actually the penultimate, the ultimate principle in the Pashupata philosophy. Then we have Shanta and Ashanta images. So basically the Anugraha Murtis of Shiva, Vishnu, or the Yoga Murtis are Shanta images, and Ashanta images are the Samhara Murtis of Shiva, or the image of Nrsimha, Vidarana Nrsimha, or Mahishasura Mardini. So this is Mahishasura, an image of Mahishasura Mardini. And this is the Kalantaka Murti of Shiva. In fact, even Aurobindo speaks about the Kalantaka Murtis, and where Shiva is actually attacking Kala or Yama. And this is Vidarana Narasimha from the Hoysayeshwar temple at Halebeedu. Then images are classified as Adrushya and Drushya are, of course, images, which can be seen, but Adrushya are something like a Shiva Linga or Shalagrama, where the presence of the deity is implied. So when we take a Shalagrama, we understand that this is a symbol of Vishnu, though Vishnu is not represented in an iconic form. And even in a way, even Adi Shankaracharya is talking about this Shalagrama. In fact, he talks about it 2 times in his Brahma Sutra Bhashya. He's talking in terms of Brahman, actually. Then Drishya images are, of course, those which have a human form. And Drishya are those which are both manifest and unmanifest, in the sense that we have a Shiva Linga, and on the Shiva Linga, we have the face of Shiva. Here, as you can see, this is a typical Gupta period Mukhalinga. currently in the collection of the Allahabad Museum. Then we have uniconic representations of the Buddha in the early art. So here, as you can see, here you can see the Bodhi tree. But here people are not worshipping the Bodhi tree as the Bodhi tree, but they are actually worshipping the Buddha. So they did, so in early art, when they had to show the Sambodhi of the Buddha, they showed it through the medium of the Bodhi tree. And see, there is a chhatra over the tree. What is it indicating? It indicates the Chakravartitva of Buddha. And a parasol, a chhatra was a part of the insignia of a king or a universal sovereign who is called a Chakravartin. Then here we have a pillar with the Dharma Chakra. So this is from Bodha Gaya, and this indicates the Dharma Chakra Pravartana, the first sermon given by the Buddha. Then this can be a Buddhist example of Drishadrisha, where we have the stupa. Okay, this is from Ajanta, from one of the Vakataka period Chaityagaras, and the stupa has an image of the Buddha. So the old uniconic form is also preserved, and the iconic form is also there. So, we never discard the old, and we seek an amalgam of the old and the new. So the Buddha here is in his uniconic form and also in his iconic form. Then one of the major, and this I will speak about, classifications of murtis is the following. So first we have yoga murtis, which help a person to concentrate and meditate. So basically the murtis which are in dhyana mudra. So here we can see an image of Vishnu, Yoga Vishnu, and we can see that he is in a dhyana mudra here. And even the image of Vitthal at Pandharpur is supposed to be a yoga murti. Or we have even the yoga murtis of Shiva, Shiva is Yogeshwar or Yoga Dakshina Murti. And then we have Bhoga murtis. Bhoga murtis are murtis which you worship for some desire, some wish to be, some material wish to be fulfilled, like wealth, progeny, whatever. So, the images of Venkateshwar or Balaji at Tirupati, Gurvayur Appan at Gurvayur, they are supposed to be Bhoga murtis. And that is one reason why we have so many people thronging to Tirupati. We don't have those many people coming to Pandharpur. This was an observation made by Professor G.B. Deglurkar. Then we have Veera murtis, basically, images of Durga or Hanuman. These are to be worshipped if you want some kind of a victory in a war. Then we have Abhicharika murtis. These are just made for purposes of black magic and things like that. And after the purpose is over, they are immersed into the water. Then even, the iconography will, as we said, will depend upon the purpose of the image. So a yoga murti will not be shown with an Abhaya or Varada mudra. That is why images of Jaina Tirthankaras are always shown in Dhyana or Kayotasarga mudra. So this is a Jaina Tirthankara image from Mathura, and he's shown here in a Dhyana mudra. But why are they not shown with Varada or Varada or Abhaya mudras? Because they are not gods. They are not deities. They are great men. They have noble characters, and they have to be emulated. They are role models. They are not deities. Then I'll just take a few examples, and I just need some more time. We have the Vishwarupa image of Vishnu, and I've taken this example because Sri Aurobindo, in his well-known work, Essays on the Gita, has written 2 essays on the Vishwarupa Murti. So we have the origin of the Vishwarupa Murti in the Vamana Trivikrama image, which we have already seen, and also in the Purusha of the Purusha Sukta, in the 10th mandala of the Rigveda, which is talking about the all-pervading primeval Purusha or being. And it is in the 11th Adhyaya of the Bhagavad Gita that we find this whole description of the Vishwarupa. And when Arjuna sees the Vishwarupa of Lord Vasudeva, Krishna, it is that universal form which constituted many beings like the 12 Adityas, 8 Vasus, 11 Rudras, the 2 Ashwins, as well as the 7 groups of the Maruts. And Arjuna is overawed. That is what even Sri Aurobindo said, that he was scared, he had fear. When he saw this, when he withheld, when he beheld this image of Vishnu, this universal form of Vasudeva Krishna, with his, body decked up with ornaments, with garlands of flowers, holding a number of weapons. And the form of the Lord is described as he was bearing the chakra and the gada, he was wearing a kirita, and he had infinite number of faces, eyes, arms, and bellies. And they are repeatedly spoken about in this adhyaya, which talks about the all-consuming, terrifying form of the Lord. Shankaracharya in his Bhashya on the Gita is also speaking about this form. And in the opinion of scholars like N.P. Joshi, this Vishwarupa image is an elaborated form of the Vaikuntha image. I don't have the time to speak about the Vaikuntha image some other time. And maybe I will not get into the details, but Vaikuntha image is where, there is the main face, it's a four-faced figure, where the main face is that of Vasudeva. There is a lion face, which is that of Sankarsana. Some people interpret it as that of Narasimha. Then there is a face of Varaha, which is some people interpret as the Varaha incarnation of Vishnu, whereas some scholars say that no, it is Pradyumna, and there is one face which is called the Kapila face, which is interpreted as Aniruddha. Basically, this is to do with the Vyuha doctrine of the Pancharatra school of Vaishnavism, which has its origin in the Veera Puja, which we spoke about. Now, most of the Vishwarupa images of Vasudeva Krishna are based on the description in the Bhagavad Gita because they match. We have descriptions of this image even in the Agni Purana, but they are much later than the Bhagavad Gita. Now, this is a Gupta period Vishwarupa Vishnu image. And see, this is how actually a Vaikuntha Murti also looks. So we have the face of Vasudeva, then we have Simha or Sankarsana, and this is Pradyumna or Varaha. And we have all kinds of beings here. We have Nagas, we have Devas, and unfortunately this image is broken, but we can imagine how large the Prabha Mandala must have been. Then similarly, this is the Rudra aspect. The Gita also talks about the Rudra aspect of the Vishwarupa image, and this is the Rudra aspect from the part of a Vishwarupa image from the Sri Krishna Janmasthana, which was, belonging to the Gupta period. And there was a temple of Vishnu very much there constructed in the Gupta period. Then this image, this part has this particular part of that Vishwarupa image has been found from the Sri Krishna Janmasthana at Mathura. And we can see this is called the Rudra Pankti. And we can see the fierce forms, the jatas and all. The third eye is also very prominent. Then Sri Aurobindo has written in detail about the Vishwarupa Murti, and in fact, he says that it is the vision of the one in the many in the one, and all in the one. It is the all-encompassing image. And actually, it is where the soul actually can come at unity with the Godhead in this vision. And as I said, as Sri Aurobindo says, Arjuna has not reached that stage because he feels a sense of fear when he sees that, when he beholds that image. That is why Arjuna tells Krishna that, please, O Lord, come back to your form of the four-armed son of Vasudeva. Because even Arjuna, though he was much better than our Lord, he was still, not a realized soul. He becomes one at the end of the Gita. And it is, as Sri Aurobindo says, it is the immeasurable, without end or middle or beginning, is he in whom all things begin and exist and end. This is, in fact, even spoken by the Upanishads, that human beings are born out of Brahman, they live by Brahman, and finally at the end they merge into Brahman. So, even if you see the Lingodbhava Murti of Shiva, is basically that the linga has that fire, that linga has no end. It doesn't have a beginning, it doesn't have an end. So, in a way, it is also showing the all-encompassing nature of Shiva. No end, no middle, no beginning. And Sri Aurobindo says, what is the Vishwarupa conveying? The real divine creation is eternal. It is the infinite manifested sempiternally in finite things, the spirit who conceals and reveals himself forever in his innumerable infinity of souls and in the wonder of their actions and in the beauty of their forms. So there is one supreme deity, but he has many forms, and many forms are actually that of the one supreme reality. I was going to speak on this, but I'm skipping. I'm just now going. So just a brief note on the syncretic icon. Basically, syncretic icons are where two deities or more than two deities are merged in one image. So this is an image of Hara, Hari, that is Vishnu, and Hara, that is Shiva. And this was mainly done to mitigate the differences between the Shaivas and the Vaishnavas. And Hara Aikya is propounded by many branches of Hinduism as well. And even like there are sculptures where we find Brahma, Surya, Vishnu, and Shiva being shown in one image. Then even in many of the Pala period images from Eastern India, we have a combination, of say Brahma and Vishnu, or Brahma and Shiva Vishnu, or even Surya is there. Then there are also combinations of Hindu deities and Buddhist deities, including Avalokiteshwar. So this is an image of Harihara from Badami. This is from Odisha. So anyway, I'm just going a little ahead. Then we also have figures like Ardhanarishwara, which are actually the embodiment of the Purusha Prakriti principles of Sankhya Darshana. It also indicates the gender neutral form of the supreme reality, that the supreme reality doesn't have a gender. It is also coming together of the male and female principles for a creation. There's a kind of a non-duality, and we have certain images like this is the Ardhanarishwara image from Elephanta, where we can see Parvati and Shiva integrated into one image. Then this is Vasudeva Kamalaja, where we have a combination of Lakshmi and Vishnu in one image, and these images were more common in Kashmir and Nepal. Then we also have figures which show Radha and Krishna together. I'm just skipping them, going to Avadhyatma form. So Sri Aurobindo clearly states that whether it is art, whether it is iconography, whether it is philosophy, all these things are actually related. Art, literature, philosophy, religion, all these are actually interrelated, connected, and they are the formative ideas behind the foundation of Indian culture. I think there are very few people like Sri Aurobindo who have understood the true ethos of Indian culture. And one reason why we must study the writings of Sri Aurobindo on iconography or art in general, or say the writings of Sister Nivedita, the reason is that these were people who had realized what they were writing. These were people who had experienced God realization, they had experienced self-realization. They were not, taking matter from the writings of others and passing it as their own. They were writing out of their own God realization, God vision. So Sri Aurobindo greatly stresses on the intuitive nature of Indian art. That's what we said in the beginning, that Murti leads to Adhyatma. It is the Adhyatmika aspect. So Indian art, what Sri Aurobindo constantly stresses, emphasizes on, is that Indian art, Indian sculpture is basically intuitive. The spirit plays an important role. In fact, that is integral. It is to disclose something of the self, the infinite, the divine, to the regard of the soul, the self through its expressions, the infinite through its living finite symbols, the divine through its powers. So the images, the murtis, become the living finite symbols of the infinite. And Sri Aurobindo says that don't go by the physical form. In Indian art, in Indian iconography, it is the spirit that is central. It is the spirit that carries the form. It is not the form that carries the spirit. That this is where Indian art and Western art greatly differ. So Indian art fundamentally represents the spirit carrying the form and not the other way around. What is seminal is the spirit. And this is the reason why, I mean, for the survival of Indian religious art through ages. I know they have, I mean, temples have been destroyed, images have been vandalized, but still, what has survived of Indian art is mainly in the form of, say, Buddhist cave temples, Hindu cave temples, Jain cave temples, or Hindu, Buddhist, Jaina structural temples, images. Why? Because the material reason was that generally stone, which was more durable, was used for the construction of religious monuments, whereas palace residential architecture continued to be built of wood. But it was because of the sacredness, because finally it is the spirit that is important. We have Indian religious art surviving, and I mean, constantly, this expression of the infinite, eternal through finite forms, which Sri Aurobindo is talking about. And he says that the spirit, or rather the physical form, was always subordinated to the spirit. And it was for this reason that, because the spirit was important, the Indian sculptor, the Indian artist had the liberty, had the freedom to show something that may not be actually present in reality. So when an image of the Buddha is shown, the intention of the artist is not to show the physique of the Buddha or the handsomeness of the Buddha or to show what dress he is wearing. The intention behind that icon is to show the nirvana of the Buddha or his Sambodhi. Like this is a figure of the Buddha from Ajanta representing his nirvana. Just see his calm. There is nothing, no pain, nothing of that sort. Buddha is completely with, I mean, he's in complete peace with himself. This is what is nirvana. And in fact, after nirvana, nothing remains. Total extinguishing of whatever is there. This is a typical Gupta period Buddha image. This is from the collection of the National Museum. Just see the calmness, the tranquility on this face. Can this be done only if the physical form was integral? No. This calmness has been achieved because it is the spirit that inner enlightenment is manifest in this particular image. See his eyes, they literally look like petals of a lotus. See his full lips, see the nose. They all show the yogi in his final samadhi avastha. This is Sambodhi, this is enlightenment, and this is what Indian artists could achieve way back in 1500 years ago. This is this because they want to show the spirit of the Buddha. See, the name Buddha itself is, conveys the spirit that he is the enlightened one. Okay. So finally, coming to my conclusion, the piece of art has to appeal to the antaratma. Something in you, the soul has to be stirred. And the icon is truly effective if it appeals to the antaratma. And finally, an image is the medium for the manifestation of divinity, because all Indian Hindu gods are cosmic beings, and that cosmic aspect has to come through, and the human aspects are always subordinate. They have to be suppressed. Like this is Sadashiva. Now the spirit of Sadashiva is to be shown. That ultimate reality, that ultimate peace, Dukkhanta, the end of all misery has to be shown. So see, The jewelry is optimum. The headgear is beautiful, but it is not elaborate. Here you can see the Aghora face or the Bhairava face. But the only thing indicating the Aghora face is the big mustache. That's it. Nothing else. No fangs. I mean, nothing of that is showing later how we see in the Hoysala images where fangs are shown and where there is too much of jewelry, very elaborate hairstyles and also. But there, in a way, the images lose their essence. So they are good works of art, but they remain works of art. They do not transcend the physical aspects to a great extent. So the physical aspects of an image should never obliterate its spiritual aspects. And an icon has to be created in such a way as to invoke a sense of adoration, awe, and veneration in the mind of a worshipper. And the purpose of iconography, image worship, the purpose of icons is not to heighten or intensify sectarianism, but to bring about a synthesis. That is why we find a number of Vaishnava icons in Shiva temples. If we take the case of the Vidyashankara temple in the Sringeri Matha, you will find Vaishnava icons like Hayagriva. Now, Hayagriva, that way has no position in Advaita Smartha tradition, but it is there in Sri Vaishnava, is considered significant in Sri Vaishnavism and the Madhva Sampradaya. And as we know, Udupi, which is the center of the Madhva Sampradaya, is located very close to Sringeri. Then we have Shaiva icons. Here we can see Tripurantaka, or we can see here Shiva with Parvati. Here, these are not images of Brahma. These are images of the Manasa Putras of Brahma, but they are executed exactly like Brahma. Nowhere can we see such images. So we have equal importance being given to Brahma also. And here we have Gajalakshmi, the aspect of Shakti. So all sects are represented. Even Surya is represented. Chandra is represented. So the journey of iconography is from Sakara, from Saguna to Nirguna. Nirguna, that is Brahman without any attributes. Professor G.B. Deglurkar has coined the term Bimba Brahma. Bimba is a murti, which means that it is the final stage of the development of Indian iconography. There is nothing beyond this. Bimba is an image which, through which one attains the knowledge about Brahman, and iconography should be used as a method, as a means to bring about a synthesis where we realize that the supreme reality is one. Ekam Sat, Advaita. That is what we must realize. And to conclude, I will conclude with a shloka from the 11th Adhyaya of the Gita, where I'll read. Tvam Adi Devah Purushah Puranaha Tvam Asya Vishwasya Param Nidhanam Vettasi Vedyam Cha Param Cha Dhama Tvaya Tatam Vishwam Anantarupa. So the translation is given that the Lord is one, but he possesses a number of forms, and he is the one who pervades the whole universe. Thank you so much. Shri Krishna.
Thank you, Sneha ji. You've taken us on this elaborate historical, spiritual, religious journey, bringing in all kinds of insights from various disciplines, very interdisciplinary, very transdisciplinary, rather, I should say. Thank you so much. I wonder if Kiranji, so this whole series is actually, I forgot to mention, is on behalf of Sri Aurobindo Society, Renaissance Journal, and Sri Aurobindo Integral Life Center at Auro University, Surat. So Kiranji is the director of Sri Aurobindo Integral Life Center. So I invite Kiranji to.
Yes, I think Snehaji, with lots of passion, you take us to the journey of iconography, and that is so beautifully done. I feel like that, this should have continued, like next session can be given to Snehaji, because in, there were so many detailed information, as well as, the insight which you were sharing was so worth understanding. That is so beautifully you have done. And I really love that icon and image, the difference between icon, when you were talking about Parvati, that like immediately clicked that what is the beautiful difference between two. So I would request Beluji that Snehaji needs to be invited next time, because it was quite intense, and then we can have, it is not necessary that in one go we finish. We will, have continuation till you feel that it is justifying the topic. What do you say,
Yeah.
Beluji?
No. In fact, when I spoke with Snehaji about today's session, I told her that we would need a separate session on like the Shakti icon, the whole mother thing. As you were talking about that Vasudeva coin, I was very intrigued. My question was, how did from Vasudeva as a Veera and, to the Shri Krishna with flute, how did that transition happen? I mean, there are so many things to explore.
Yes.
So I'm sure others have many questions also. So when we talk, Kiranji, we'll figure out the time schedule, and then I'll be in touch, Snehaji, with you again, because you really opened up many things. So we want to go deeper into some of those things.
Yeah. Thank you, Snehaji. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think we are a little over the time. So maybe I would request others, if they have any questions or comments, they can put it in the chat box. We can keep it open for another 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And if there are some longer questions, maybe just hold on to them for next session with Snehaji. So any quick comment or question, we can keep it
Comment
open.
is there. There is a beautiful,
Yeah.
amazing lecture and interesting and insightful Ashrama is writing. And Sushriji is saying that thanks, Sneha, for giving an elaborate presentation in a very interesting way. The different icons are awesome. Beautiful. Yeah.
Surabhi Pandeji is also commenting, amazing lecture. Many congratulations for such an elaborate. Arkaji is commenting on visualization and imagination. Both are main complementary factors in time of sadhana.
I couldn't touch on those things because
yeah.
So the limited time actually, but these are very important pointers which Arkaji, and what he's saying is right, that our thoughts make us limited, but in soul or in spirit we are infinite.
True. Yeah.
What it talks about.
Yeah.
Is finite.
Yeah. R.V. Jairam ji is talking about the Nataraj Murti, which is supposed to be the tallest and the most beautiful one. So yeah, excellent. So I think we will be in touch with you soon for another session. Maybe we can talk specifically on few, since you brought us already onto the, from the earliest period to the newer Puranic deities. So maybe we can take it from there and, specifically on certain specific details about what should be there, the iconometry part. I mean, that also I'm very interested in.
I skipped that because
even the icons that are not, the images that are not meant to be worshipped. I remember reading about, the size of the face and size of the waist for, the Yakshi images and things like that. So we'll be back in touch with you. And I want to thank everyone for just so patiently being with us and enjoying this journey into Indian art, the wonder that is Indian art, with us through these series. So we'll be back again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening.